Um, Hi everybody. So my name is Sam Beecher. This is the first video I've done in discussion forum, so bear with me. I am not very accustomed to talking to nobody. This is pretty new to me, and it's not a strong suit of mine. I am not an influencer or a blogger in any sort of way. So I'll be using a cheat sheet which I have in front of me, and this is just to help me stay organized and on track so I can deliver somewhat of a coherent message to you guys. The question that I will be discussing from this week is question 6 from chapter 2, and that is, does sexual intercourse during menstruation strike you as appealing? And before I get into that, I've decided that the best way I want to go about this is to make a pro and con list. It just made the most sense. It allowed me to really analyze this because my initial reaction was, pretty immediate. And so before I get to what my opinion, I want to go through a pro and cons list. But before I do that, also, I wanted to say, first off, is there anything wrong with it? Like, is there any legitimate reason why people shouldn't be having sex while on their period? And the answer that I found and came up with from the reading this week is that it kind of just depends on where you're at, So the textbook talks about how in cultures around the world, periods are kind of not viewed the same way as they are here. It says negative attitudes about menstruation are also common around the world, especially among men. In Nepal, for example, menstruating women are widely believed to pollute any people or objects they touch, and are therefore banished to tiny huts outside the village. And this is obviously like a really unhealthy, really horrible way of dealing with this, and it is been made illegal, but it still happens, so it's kind of sad. Not kind of, it is sad. But on the flip side of that, according to, and this is a quote from an article, according to Dr. Lauren Stryker, professor of clinical obstetrics and gynecology at Northwestern University, she says that from a medical point of view, there is nothing wrong with having intercourse when a person is menstruating. So it kind of just depends on your preference and what you're okay with. So now on to the pro and con list. My first pro, I think, is fairly obvious, and that is that the odds of getting pregnant while menstruating are pretty low. It's not zero because, like the textbook talks about, there are some irregularities to periods, and so there is like the off chance that an egg is released, too soon, and so you could match that up. But like I said, it's pretty rare to do. It's almost a guarantee that you won't get pregnant, but not quite. The next pro, and this is kind of interesting to me because a lot of these pros that I found are honestly for the women, which is kind of nice because, they have to deal with the negatives of it too. So I guess it's nice that there are some positives. This pro is that during the period, hormone levels rise and fall, making, for some women, sex more pleasurable, and arousal can also be higher. This is the second quote from that same Dr. Lauren Stryker. She says that sometimes menstruation can also help you get more turned on. That is because estrogen and testosterone are lower on day 1 of your cycle, but they start to rise by day 3. Some people report that they feel more aroused and more sensitive during this time. So for some women it can feel better to have sex, and their sex drives can be a little higher. And the reason why having a higher sex drive during this time can be a pro is because of the second reason, that there have been studies that show that orgasms can help with period cramps. This is from that same article, that basically the idea is that when you have an orgasm, the muscles in your uterus contract too. When they inevitably release, it can feel better down there. At the same time, having an orgasm triggers release of endorphins, which are thought to help with pain. So those last two pros kind of go hand in hand, and I thought that those 3 pros were the biggest of the ones that I found. And now on to the cons, which are all kind of, these are pretty subjective. Like, these are kind of cons that I thought would be Oh, I guess one of them is, anyway. The first one that I said is it can be very messy. It's hard to manage that and contain it, and so yeah, it's just messy. You can put blood in clothes and on the carpet, and I don't know, depending on how, I guess, wild you are, it can end up in a lot of crazy places, which can be hard to get out. The other reason, which is honestly a pretty significant one, is that with the increased amounts of blood flow and fluids, STDs and STIs are also at an increased chance of being transmitted. And that goes both ways for the girl and the man and the woman. The last con that I came up with is it's just not for everybody. Like, my initial reaction is, it's not appealing to me. I don't want to say the word gross because it's natural, like it happens. So, like, gross isn't the right word, but I get squeamish around blood. So there's a lot of it has to be a pretty you have to have some personal preference for that one. So in my opinion, I would have to say that sex on a period is not the most appealing of ideas, and it's just my opinion. It's not for me, but for you guys or anybody else that is into that, like, more power to you. There are certainly some pros and some things to watch out for, but there's nothing wrong with it, so go for it, man. That's where I'll end this first video, and thank you guys for watching and sticking through it. And yeah, anyway.